Good afternoon, everybody. It is great to be here today with our wonderful educators and our incredible students. We enter 2023 with hope and optimism. After 3 tough years of a pandemic, tornadoes, ice storms, flooding, inflation, even the economic repercussions of a war in Europe, it'd be an understatement to say we have been through a lot, but we have. But as we enter this new year, I believe that we have a chance to turn the page, to move from times of great difficulty to times of great promise. And our opportunity to do that is in front of us right now. Since I came into office, my administration has been laser focused on those challenges and concerns that confront our parents every night when they sit down at that dinner table. Things like, do I have a good paying job where I can provide opportunities for my kids? Can I take and afford to take my kids or my parents to see a doctor when they're sick? Are my family and my community safe? Are my kids getting the very best education? These are the worries of a parent. I know I am one, but I have faith in us. I have faith that we as Kentuckians can address each and every one of these worries, and we can do it together to build that better Kentucky where every child has a chance at true prosperity and no one is left out of our economic evolution or revolution. When we look at what's going on across Kentucky right now, with our 2 greatest years of economic development, with us, Kentucky, leading the entire country in new job growth 2 of the 12 months from last year, something we have never done before. The promise of that better Kentucky has never been more real. And as we talk to folks around the country, it's clear that we've arrived. Never to be a flyover state again, but to be the destination, the place where some of the world's most sophisticated companies are betting their company on us and what we can do as Kentuckians. We've worked real hard to get here. We've been really good people to get here. But if we want to stay here, if we want to turn a couple of years of great economic development into decades of prosperity, it takes work. And a lot of the work has to occur in our public school system. So today I'm grateful to be at Eastern High School, where we are focused on our classrooms, and we're focused on how we can relieve the worries of our parents by lifting up our educators and better funding systems that come to work every single day to do their very best for our kids. If we want to provide the very best workforce for these opportunities that are coming right now, we must invest in our schools to ensure our children get the very best, because they're going to have opportunities to chase the biggest dreams they've ever had and to do them right here in Kentucky. But here are our challenges. Right now, Kentucky ranks 44th in the nation in teacher starting pay. And over the last year, despite what some in the General Assembly say, we dropped from 42nd to 44th. I don't know about you, but I'm ashamed of that. Our educators deserve better. And a year where we were #1 in economic development 2 months, to drop to 44th in teacher pay is wrong. And this year, the average teacher saw a 5.3% decline in pay adjusting for inflation. We didn't just drop in rankings. The resources that our teachers have to raise their own families, to provide for those they care about, actually went down. Sadly, that's part of a bigger trend. Over 7 years, when you look at an inflation adjustment, pay has declined for our educators by 14.7%. That's nearly $10,000. Think about what that amount of money means, what it allows you to do, or what it prevents you from being able to do. There are 11,000 teacher vacancies across the Commonwealth. These are teachers, coaches, interventionists who are needed in our classrooms. And Jefferson County Schools reporting more than 300 open teaching positions. Every teacher position is critical. Every one means a stable, consistent teacher and an education in that classroom. It ensures that every single child and every single young person is getting the very best. Trust me, I know, as a parent of 2 middle schoolers, what it means if you don't have that math teacher, and we got a couple of great ones here today, what it means if we don't have that social studies teacher, that English teacher. And we look across the state and the loss that some people have experienced just because they've done an incredible thing and stayed in the teacher profession is almost mind-blowing. That average pay has fallen by up to 32% for educators in some parts of Kentucky. Now, JCPS is working real hard on teacher pay, and Superintendent Polio, thank you for that work. The district has committed local funds to pay teachers more. They've already approved a 5% raise for 2023-24 school year on top of a 4% raise this year, so thank you for that work. And while JCPS is working hard, they shouldn't have to be dipping from other funds that can be used for so many important causes. It's important that the state step up and do our part, especially when we are in the 3rd year of what will be the 4 largest budget surpluses in our state's history. At the end of this budget, we'll have over $2 billion of revenue that came in over expenditures. How can we not invest when teacher pay is 44th and we're sitting on $2 billion extra dollars even before we look at our rainy day fund? Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Coleman, I'm real proud to have a lieutenant governor who's a classroom teacher and then administrator. Actually, I said I'm proud. I'm really lucky she chose me. But we've been working since day one of our administration to put our educators and our students first. But each year, the General Assembly fails to act or fails to do enough. It is time to give our teachers a raise, and we are once again proposing a plan. Our proposal is on top of what every district has already done or plans to do, that the state provide funding for an additional 5% raise for every educator. That's every employee in one of our public schools. Passing this is necessary, and trust me, it's not political. If you need to know that, just look across the river where Governor Eric Holcomb, a Republican governor of Indiana, is pushing to increase teacher pay. It's not only the right thing to do, it is necessary for us to do both here and across Kentucky to remain competitive. Passing this plan is both vital and necessary because we cannot prepare the next generation for these opportunities that we have if we have 11,000 vacancies across the state. I think back during the pandemic. You know, a lot of people talk about it. I lived it with my kids. I sat next to them when we were doing distance learning where their educators tried their very best, worked so hard to engage their students. And I'm really proud of how our educators fought through that pandemic, how we became one of the first states to have every district back, because we prioritized our teachers for vaccinations, very first state in the country to do that. But I think learning loss is something that has to be addressed for our kids. I don't think it's a political tool to try to bludgeon your opponents with. And we think when we think about learning loss, the number one thing we know is that we can't catch kids up in math if they don't have a math teacher. We can't catch kids up on English if they don't have an English teacher. And so we believe that anyone who is actually serious about addressing learning loss, instead of just putting it in an ad, ought to be supporting this plan to ensure we can pay our teachers closer to what they deserve and get the folks that are here more help so that we can fill every single classroom and every single opening. Put simply, our educators are amazing, and we are grateful for everybody who has stuck it out. You deserve better. You deserve more. You shouldn't have to work a second job just to do something that society desperately needs you to do. We haven't shown enough appreciation to you. And when pensions were cut for new teachers, it dealt us a difficult blow. That means in one bad day, we might lose a really good educator. I want you to know this administration is going to continue to fight for you, no matter how long it takes, no matter what the odds are, because doing the right thing is the right thing. And we plan on doing the right thing every single time. We're going to talk first about this issue. We've got a number of amazing folks from this school system. And then we'll come back to talk about a few other parts of our plan that can not only ensure we fill those educator positions, but how about have every single child in Kentucky kindergarten ready? How about ensuring we have the additional help for the mental and social needs, not just of our students, but also of our educators that are taking so many of these journeys with them? And how about we finally provide the funding for professional development, which we require people to have, but the state hasn't been paying its share of the bill. So now I have the privilege of welcoming somebody that, let me tell you, has been a wonderful partner to this administration. Somebody who always takes issues head on when they're there, admits when there are things we need to do better, but that's when you know you've got a leader who is truly dedicated to doing it. I've been really impressed by his tenure as your superintendent. So let me welcome Marty Polio, JCPS superintendent. I like that.
All right, exciting to be here, Governor, at Eastern High School. Thank you for joining us. First of all, students at Eastern High, let's hear from you. Where are our students? Media, don't forget to interview these students. What about our teachers and staff here? Where are our teachers and staff? All right. You know, I tell you, about 22 years ago, I coached my last basketball game as a coach right over in the gym back over here. The game actually made me quit coaching. And I thought, man, I'm really not good at this. But then I realized the other point guard on Eastern's team was Rajon Rondo. It was, and little did I know he was going to win multiple NBA championships and probably be a Hall of Famer. But if it wasn't for Rajon Rondo, I'd probably be in practice right now. Same with you, right, Lieutenant Governor? But here we are back at Eastern, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much, Governor, for choosing to come to JCPS and Eastern High School. We love to show off our schools. Unfortunately, we're not in school right now, but so happy to have kids here. I do want to say this. When the governor talks about improving education, you know, he walks the walk, not just talks the talk, like we hear so often as the narrative across the nation. It just made me reflect when he talked about vaccines for teachers. The governor called me, you know, when he was putting together the vaccination plan and said, we want teachers. I can't even remember, it was 1A or 1B, or it was right at the front of the line. And that just says a lot about how much value there is to teachers and education to get us back into school. I don't know if it wasn't for that, if we'd have been able to get back in March like we did. And so thank you so much for that. His commitment to funding education and to supporting education is second to none. I'd put it up against anybody nationally. So I'm proud to stand here and also support this plan as well. I will tell you, in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, in the early 90s, the Rose decision was made. Kira was brought about, and Kentucky was a shining star when it came to funding for education and paying teachers. It was a shining star across the nation. You can go back and look at the research articles that were written about the commitment to education that Kentucky had. Slowly but surely over the course of time, that has eroded, unfortunately. I look at JCPS. We went nearly 10 years in this district, giving no more than a 1% raise approximately each year, many years a 0% raise to our teachers. What that has created in this district and every district around the state, and quite frankly the nation, is an absolute shortage of teachers. And so, you know, I think it's first and foremost we have to note, of all the things we talk about in education, we can talk about school choice, we can talk about facilities, curriculum, everything we talk about. Nothing is more detrimental to a student and their success than not having a certified teacher standing in front of them for a classroom that day. And once again, if you recall, there are 11,000 in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. This is not just a rural issue or an urban issue or a suburban issue. It's not a JCPS issue. I talk to my colleagues and I stand here to represent the superintendents of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and this is in every county in the Commonwealth and also in every large district across the United States. And so what we face We face a choice here. And I will say this, pay is not the only factor in retaining teachers and recruiting teachers to the profession. I don't want to bring it down to just pay. However, it is an extremely important part of ensuring that we retain our teachers in the profession and we begin to bring more teachers into the profession, without a doubt. This is also becoming a competition between states. Our Human Resources Department goes to job fairs, to colleges all over America. And I can tell you, there are school districts from every single state standing there offering teachers jobs on the spot. And one of the first things they will ask is, how much do you pay your teachers to start? They would love to come work for JCPS. They would love to come to the Commonwealth of Kentucky. But this is a competition for talent. There is no doubt about it. And so we have to ensure that if we are going to go out and be competitive in this competition, we must pay our teachers as they deserve. I have said this from a JCPS standpoint. Our goal is to be the top paying county district in the entire Commonwealth of Kentucky, bar none. That's why we said last year we had to bring a 4% raise to all of our employees and follow it up right here this past November with a 5% raise. But it cannot stop there. We must be competitive. We work on continuous improvement all the time. I will tell you this, just last week, we were sitting and planning about how we were going to positively impact the influx of English second language students we've had in our district. However, we know that the answer to that is add more English second language teachers to our schools. They're not out there. We don't have them to hire right now. And so we have to look for alternative ways to impact our students positively that just may not be there with the staff that we need. On top of that, when we are asking our staff to cover classes that are not theirs during their planning period, that exacerbates the teacher burnout. We have to change this trajectory. My fear that if we don't address it right now, 10 years, it's a crisis now, I don't know what we would call it 10 years from now. But it is a scary scenario when we look at those coming through the teacher education programs across America and the number of vacancies that will be occurring. So I couldn't agree with the governor more. The most immediate step we could take to improve education in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, the lowest hanging fruit, is a 5% raise for every single employee of our public school system across the Commonwealth of Kentucky, bar none. And so we'll stand behind that. We'll support the governor in that. Second of all, I have to say it before I sit down. We know pre-K and early childhood has a significant impact on the success of students. There is a correlation between having pre-K, high-quality early childhood classrooms, being kindergarten ready, and being successful throughout your career K through 12. Another low-hanging fruit, so to speak, that we could use right now that could be successful is fund pre-K, early childhood for every single young person in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. There are a lot of things that are hard to wrestle with when it comes, I know, to governance, when it comes to school systems, so many things out of our control. But what is in our control? Paying our teachers and providing high-quality early education for children. We can do this. This should be done, and I call on the legislature. Once again, let's give our employees of public schools in Kentucky a 5% raise right now, and let's also make sure we ensure high-quality early child care for all of our children in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Thank you, Governor.
Next, we have our host. Heather Orman is our principal right here. Thank you for the work that you do and for the team you lead.
Thank you. I would like to start by thanking Governor Beshear and Dr. Polio for coming to Eastern High School to recognize the importance of the work that we do every day. During the pandemic, we all worked really hard to ensure students and families felt supported throughout different iterations of school, whether it was NTI, hybrid, 10-day quarantine, 5-day quarantined, masked, unmasked, but the learning loss and the social emotional ramifications among students are still significant. Nothing can replace a teacher. Now we are faced with a teacher shortage, as mentioned by Dr. Polio and Governor Beshear, around the district, the state, and the country. JCPS is committed to increasing salaries for teachers in our schools and our district, reallocate staff, and plan and replan as vacancies occur to prioritize the classroom, but nothing can replace a teacher. It is critical that we recognize the importance of a teacher and make every effort to see that every student in every classroom in all schools has a teacher. So now I'd like you to hear a few words from a classroom teacher, Mr. Roger Kroom, a teacher at Eastern High School.
Thank you. On behalf of the staff and our school community, I want to welcome you to Eastern High School. Thanks for coming. This is something very special. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to tell my story as an educator. My impression of teaching has evolved since I entered the profession. An educated, engaged, civil-minded individual, inspiring youth, encouraging them to become their very best. I was convinced that it was all it took. Growing up, I can't remember my teachers displaying the stresses I feel now as an educator. I didn't realize that Mrs. Smith was reading my writing late at night, trying to search for changes that would indicate that there was something going on at home, or Miss McDonald staying up all night writing a 4th grade rap for a DARE contest to keep us interested in saying no to drugs. Or Miss Sullivan that worried if my coat was warm enough or if I would pull my hat down over my ears. Now, I know better. Of course they did. Most teachers do. Whether the level of concern is good for our mental health is another story, though. But like clockwork, before I drift to sleep, I think about my students, looking forward to seeing them the next day, or after the weekend to make sure they come back okay. I'm wondering, am I getting through to them? Why haven't I seen this student in a week? What can I change in myself and my instruction to better help them get to where they need to be? Finding ways to make learning relevant and enjoyable, tangible. I remember one of my favorite days. I had students write a breakup letter. And then I segued that into talking about the Declaration of Independence and how the colonies wanted to be independent and to build themselves up on their own. I had them. It had become relevant to them that they could see themselves in the retelling of history. Those kids were exceptional at breaking up. We know our students. Birthdays are the most celebrated days of the year. Some students are not always celebrated at home. Sadly, the children realize that some of their peers are taken away too soon. My thing is celebrating them, whether through cupcakes or cookies or cards or pizza. Every child, a A or a U. I want them to feel seen and loved and respected. Hey, even driving a student to an eye doctor appointment when their parent doesn't get home early enough to take them. Rapport is the biggest tool you can have in your arsenal when times get tough with your students. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. We need professionals, the very best, to be pillars for these children. Although I'm clear in my role as an educator now, I didn't understand how close I would come to being a parent to many of my students. As Teachers know now as acting in loco parentis, a Latin phrase we live every day. As a football coach, walked numerous students through senior nights, collected roses and hugs meant for their parents that were at home, at work, or just unavailable. Teaching life skills beyond the content many times, as my first teacher, my mother, did for me. Lessons on manners, conflict resolution, tact, self-control. These interactions, aside from content and the relationships that are built through them, last a lifetime and are the reasons why teachers choose the profession. I have found teachers not only are teachers of the humanities, but are instructors in humanities. There also are some unforeseen challenges. I chose to become an educator when schoolhouses were viewed by society as safe havens, immune from violence. Parents saw their kids off in the morning, knowing they'd be back that afternoon, sharing stories of what was learned that day. That expectation is no longer assured. Teachers go to work knowing that they hold the line of defense when it comes to the safety of our students. Additionally, since returning to the classroom post-COVID, I noticed the children's propensity to stray away from humanity and to gravitate towards seclusion. Over a year of being home alone, not exercising social skills, horrible eating and sleeping habits, what once came naturally, the ability to hold and keep a student's attention, has become increasingly trying. Teachers always had natural challenges. However, social and environmental challenges have gotten more formidable with each day. An educator is a professional that wears many hats. We do it because there is nothing we believe more important. Teachers provide for a child's safety and take on the responsibilities of parents in their absence. We are tasked with identifying mental health issues and reporting abuse. I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna go really quick. Okay. I haven't mentioned IEPs, PLCs, PLPs, calls home, good and bad, best practice instructional strategies, evidence-based pedagogy, prompt and specific feedback on assessments, differentiated instruction, and an equitable and safe classroom environment. Oh wait, our favorite, 24 hours of mandatory professional development each year. It takes special people to meet special challenges. Currently, there are 300 teaching vacancies for special people in Jefferson County. Here, leadership has attempted to keep pace with those ever-increasing responsibilities that teachers shoulder. A 4% salary increase coupled with a 5% increase in the 23-24 school year. Unfortunately, all of Kentucky's educators don't share in our incentives. Teachers in counties like Marion County, where I'm from, or Graves County, or Johnson County, perform the same job descriptions, have the same education requirements, face the same challenges, have the same timeless impact, but are not compensated with the same consideration. Higher wages will not solve everything. However, it helps to make teaching a viable option for professionals considering other careers. Higher wages will give teachers the security needed to pour into kids that they teach without reservation or deprioritization because of a second job or financial stress. Higher salaries will retain teachers. They will increase staff size and decrease class size, alleviating attrition due to work stress. As a Kentuckian, I share the goal of living in a state with a growing, vibrant economy, where every student has what they need to succeed in school and in their lives. Following the initiative shown in Jefferson County, our Commonwealth must make the needed investment in the foundation of our economy by increasing teacher salaries and providing our students with professionals that will make a positive difference in their lives. Thank you.
Next time, we're just going to have Roger speak. Thank you. I think, didn't that just crystallize the two things we heard before? Nothing can replace a teacher. And this is a competition for talent. And I think Roger just told us how critical it is and what it takes to have that really special person investing in our kids. And Roger, we want a lot more of you. And I know we have some more today. Next, we're going to hear from Emily McKiernan, who is an English teacher at Southern High School here in Louisville.
I was also lucky enough to be Roger Croom's coworker for several years. So, my name's Emily McKiernan Blanton, and I've had the privilege to be a teacher at Southern High School for 15 years. I could tell you about my colleagues selling plasma to make ends meet, driving Ubers after school to pay their bills. However, before I'm a teacher, I'm a mother. My son is an 8th grader, and my daughter is a 4th grader, and they both attend their reside schools here in JCPS. I'm a mother whose daughter did not have a 1st grade teacher. I'm a mother whose son did not have a 5th grade teacher. I'm a mother whose son didn't have a science teacher last year. I'm a mother whose daughter does not have a reading teacher right now. I know what it looks like to look at your child's schedule and see vacancy 3 instead of a teacher's name. I know that the real learning loss is the catastrophic teacher shortage, and that it's not really a teacher shortage. It is a shortage of people willing to work in these conditions for that money. My children had vacancies long before COVID existed, before we knew what COVID-19 even was. We are still dealing with the repercussions of the years-long vacancies that they have had while attending their reside schools here in JCPS. It's past time we paid teachers a professional, thriving wage. I want my children's teachers to be able to focus on my children and their education instead of making it in time to their second job so that they can clock in. There are teachers who leave their school buildings to clock in at a restaurant and then serve the families of their students. And I want you to sit and think for a minute about being a 2nd grade child and your teachers carrying your dinner to you at a restaurant after teaching you all day. I don't want the people who care for my children, the people willing to put their bodies in the way should the worst case scenario happen. I don't want those people to have to clock in for a 2nd or 3rd job. I don't want that for any of our children. Our teachers are getting recruited straight out of the classroom. I had another tell me yesterday she was resigning after being offered a job she never even applied for. Why? Because the private sector learned what everybody else is realizing. We are amazing, dedicated, hardworking professionals, and they are willing to pay us to leave the classroom, to leave your children, in order to work at their businesses instead. And when I say we are hardworking people, Dr. Polio mentioned the number of people that had to sub on their planning periods. Last school year, I subbed over 80 times. And that was my students having learning loss because I was taking time away to go watch another teacher's classroom because they had COVID or they had the flu or any number of things that have happened. Our children are our most valuable resource. We know that. We all know that. We know that our children are the most important people in our lives, but your children are also the most important people in our lives. They are the reason why we get up. This is not just a paycheck for us. It's a calling, but a calling doesn't pay my bills, especially while my LG&E bill looks like a car payment. We need a significant pay raise. The best and the brightest are already in our classrooms. They are our students, they are our teachers. They are already there. And we are the #1 people that can recruit more people to come here. Because as a mother, both of my children have told me, I want to be a teacher like you. And I used to love that. And now I find myself saying, let's try something else, because I do not want this life for you. Our districts can only do so much. I like to use Kentuckyisms when we go around with the NEA events. So I like to remind them that you cannot squeeze blood from a turnip, and we have been squeezing blood from a turnip. The money that we could have used to do the $1 billion needs of facility upgrades in JCPS, we've had to use in order to pay the people who are working, because we should pay people when they're working. And it's not just our teachers. When I told you that I'm a parent that knows what it looks like to see vacancy 3, I also know what it looks like to get that text alert your child doesn't have a bus ride home. Get the text alert while you're already clocked in at work, your child doesn't have a bus to school. All of us, all of the educators, everyone that interacts with the child, no matter what level they're at, needs a pay raise, because our children are worth it. It's beyond time that we can look our children in the eyes and say, you are worth investing in. An investment in educators, an investment in education support professionals, that is an investment in children. It is an investment in them saying, your future is worth it. We know that you can do better. We know that you can have opportunities, but the opportunities are meaningless when they don't have access because they spend 3-4 periods with a sub, and sometimes 2 of those are me. Our children are worth it, and we need to make sure that they know that. Thank you.
I also have an 8th grader, and that's already hard enough on a parent. Thank you for your dedication to our kids and for every educator, everybody who works inside this building or any other public school. We are grateful for you. And thank you for being here today to provide that first-hand account of what you go through, because people need to hear it. It is time to get that raise for every single public school educator. It's also time for universal pre-K. Universal pre-K, what it could do for every single child across the Commonwealth, when so many show up for kindergarten already behind and maybe never catch up. What it could do for our workforce, which is talked about a lot in Frankfort, but the #1 most effective thing we could do to get the most people back in the workforce the fastest is universal pre-K, starting with all 4-year-olds. Last place they did this was Washington, D.C., and they increased their workforce over 9% in 1 year, especially helping new mothers get back in the workforce that much sooner. It's now also a competitive issue, just like that competition for talent, because Cincinnati, right across the river from our Northern Kentucky communities, announced it's going to fund universal pre-K. Last year, the National Institute for Early Childhood Research found that in 2019, nearly half of all 3-year-olds and a third of all 4-year-olds were not enrolled in preschool because their parents couldn't afford it. It is heartbreaking. Talking to a Kentuckian that said, I thought I was poor, but I didn't know I wasn't poor enough to qualify for Head Start, and I can't afford to send my child to preschool. How much do you feel if that's your family? Access to early education during a critical mental development period is denied to so many Kentuckians that later we expect or even put pressure on to succeed in life. We have loads of research that shows how incredible pre-K is for our children. And people try to throw out one study here, maybe to a state to our south, to claim that decades upon decades of research is somehow false. To me, that's just more misinformation. Not only do we get parents back in the workforce, the children have better outcomes. And at a time where we're going to have a job waiting for every single Kentuckian, whether they want to go straight into the workforce after learning skills in our career and technical programs, or whether they go through the amazing KCTCS program, or whether they go to a 4-year institution, there is an opportunity waiting for them. And we can't set any of our young Kentuckians up to fail. Universal pre-K is a win-win for parents, students. It is a win for our economy, and it is a necessity to be competitive as an economy going forward. JCPS has more than 2,600 3- and 4-year-olds in its early childhood program. Those students are prepared for kindergarten, but many others are not. JCPS wants better prepared kindergartners, and getting them in pre-K is essential to making that happen. Now to speak more on that, I have the privilege of welcoming Jackie Mayfield, a kindergarten teacher at Middletown Elementary. Jackie, thank you for what you do.
Good afternoon. As Governor Beshear just said, my name is Jacqueline Mayfield. I am a kindergarten teacher at Middletown Elementary. My teaching career began 17 years ago at Middletown in the early childhood pre-K Head Start program. After 3 years holding that role, I moved on and transitioned into kindergarten. And there I currently still teach kindergarten at Middletown Elementary. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak from the perspective of a kindergarten teacher about the need and the importance of universal pre-K and kindergarten readiness. Let me begin by saying the earlier a child can be exposed to a quality educational experience, the more enriched their educational journey can become. William Gormley, a public policy professor from Georgetown University, studied Tulsa, Oklahoma pre-K, and he studied them for about 15 years, and he found that their universal pre-K program from that study that they implemented 9 months ahead. The preschool students were 9 months ahead their peers in pre-reading skills, 7 months ahead in pre-writing skills, and 5 months ahead of their peers in pre-math skills. At kindergarten, entry into Oklahoma, the single best predictor of test scores is not race or income, but whether or not the child was in preschool. Universal pre-K helps children develop non-cognitive skills like emotional and social intelligence, along with respect for rules. They develop enriched language self-help skills and many, many more skills. It also benefits our local workforce families who decide to have a parent stay home with their child until their child is school-aged. Well, with this program, the parents can get back into the workforce sooner. A lot of the parents that stay home with the children are usually moms. Well, with this and the parents being able to get back into the workforce sooner, it also offers or promotes gender equality. Universal pre-K offers single parents and low-income families an opportunity to enroll their children in a safe learning environment while they can comfortably go to work and not worry about their children. Children with developmental delays or children who have diagnosis can be identified at an early age, early on, and receive early intervention services before entering kindergarten or upon. Some of the disadvantages of not offering universal pre-K: behaviors are higher, children lack social and emotional skills, lower motivation to learn, they lack enriched language skills, they are overall not prepared for school readiness. When children enter unprepared for kindergarten, they are at a disadvantage and are continually playing catch-up, and that gap gets bigger every year. Not only does this affect their academics, but it also affects their self-esteem and their well-being. With all of this being said, Unequal access to education is the leading contributor to racial, social, and economic disparities and the growing divide between the top 1% and those living in poverty. We need to afford all students, regardless of their status, we need to afford all students, regardless of their race, national origin, socioeconomic status, and geographic location, the opportunity to thrive to their potential. It is a neglect and disservice to our future, our pre-K children, who will one day run this country. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "The function of education is to teach one to think intensely, to think critically, intelligence plus character. That is the goal of true education." My hope is that we will give our babies the opportunity to think intensely and critically at an early age, so they can become the best students, the best adults, and the best Americans they can be. I recently lost my father in December, and I want to end with a quote that he always says to any and everybody that he meets, and I want to say this to you all today. It's a beautiful day in Kentuckiana. Thank you.
Thank you for being here and sharing what you see every single day. You know what I was struck by when you talk about a child being 9 months ahead in this and 5 months ahead in that, when they've only lived 4 years. What a huge, huge advantage that is for those that have gotten pre-K, and what a disadvantage it is for others. Our Education First plan moves on from teacher raises and universal pre-K, and you might not think it, but those are connected, because with what we pay our teachers right now, even knowing how important pre-K is, many struggle to afford it. Those two things are tied, and we need to make sure that we are paying a wage where those that certainly see how critical this is can ensure that their kids, but it should be everybody's kids, have that opportunity. But our Education First plan also provides more funding for educational resources, mental health support, and that's both for our students and our educators, and loan forgiveness program for our teachers. Together, we will make Kentucky a shining example of how to treat our educators, but also how we invest in our future. Our school superintendents know better than anyone how important it is to invest in schools, and they will serve as an integral partner in this plan. I want to thank everybody at this school and others for fighting the good fight, even when the resources haven't been there. You've been asked to do a lot, and you are still here in the trenches doing your very best. But you deserve better, and you deserve a lot more help. And that's why we are pushing this plan so hard. Local government is also here pushing the plan. You may have heard in Mayor Greenberg's inaugural speech, you only get to give those once or maybe twice, that he talked about universal pre-K and how we were going to work together to try to make that possible for the state, but how he wanted to see it here in Jefferson County. So today we have joining us Deputy Mayor Barbara Sexton Smith speaking on his behalf in support of this issue. And if you've never heard Barbara speak, you're in for something.
Thank you, Governor Andy. And as I always like to say, send me in, Coach. I'm ready to go. Thank you, Dr. Polio, for setting us up with the basketball story at the beginning of these remarks. And thank all of you for being here today on what is, in my opinion, one of the very most important days in the entire history of the Commonwealth of Kentucky, when you can see such great leaders coming together. And I see Brent McKim with JCTA over here. We can give them a round of applause. And the wonderful, fine students that I met when I came in, it was a receiving line, and I asked them, and they're interested in government, right? Political science. I think we had field and track, maybe some cross-country, right? So I was talking a little bit about running for office and running a government, and then I thought I better come up and take my seat. Governor Andy, on behalf of the newly elected mayor, the first new mayor in 12 years in Louisville, Kentucky, Mayor Craig Greenberg, he has asked me to come and bring greetings, but most importantly, he said, Barbara, just emphasize what we believe in. Mayor Craig Greenberg is leading our city along with 5,000 employees who work for Louisville Metro government. He's leading us in a new direction. And universal pre-K is one of the big, bold initiatives that he's been talking about. He ran all across this county, y'all. He ran in all the neighborhoods, 623 precincts. He visited many schools, and everywhere that he went, and when I was with him, we heard people ask for universal pre-K, and maybe they didn't use that language, Governor, but they said, when y'all get in office, and y'all better get in office, they would say, we want you to take care of every child. Every child. We want you looking at all of the children across Jefferson County through an equitable lens. Because you see, friends, there's one thing we can all agree on. Was everybody in this room 3 years old at one point in time? Of course you were. Was everybody in here 4 years old at one point in time? All right, and as I think about some of the remarks I heard today, can you imagine stepping up to a free throw line in a basketball gym, if you're the basketball player, and you were just told not so fast? You got to go back 15 more feet. That's how far behind some of our 3- and 4-year-olds are starting out. Well, because Governor Andy Beshear has a vision and has a plan, I want to say today, Mayor Craig Greenberg and his entire administration and all of our team, we are committed. We are committed to work with you. We're committed to help you, not just here in Jefferson County. Louisville's a great big town, y'all. We're willing to help set the stage and set the pace as we run all across 120 counties in the Commonwealth, carrying your vision and your plan with the great leadership. You got one of the greatest basketball coaches the state's ever seen right here. That's a round of applause for Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Coleman. Governor Beshear, the Greenberg administration is committed and focused. We are committed to working every day with partners. It's going to take a lot of partners all across Jefferson County working together, and we are looking for common sense solutions to complex challenges. And the last time I checked with my mama, who was born in Fightin' Holler, Rocky Adkins, I think you know where that is, she said, Barbara Ann, just make sure you get up every day and you give your very best. And we're going to do that. And it's a big, bold initiative. I want to ask you all something. You've been listening for quite a while. Do you think this is possible? Yes. All right. Do you think Governor Beshear has a good plan? Yes. All right. Okay. I should stop while I'm ahead, right? Right? Okay. That's what they say. So thank you all very much. And just remember, together we'll create a great connected community and build our future now. Our future is our children. Governor Beshear and Jefferson County, on behalf of Mayor Craig Greenberg, we are proud to be on Team Kentucky with you. Thank you.
Thank you. So the deputy mayor always has the energy, but I didn't know she was going to out-y'all me. To close us out, you want to talk about the heart and soul of state government. Having an educator in the lieutenant governor's office is something special. It says something special about this administration and about this state. It makes sure that we never lose touch with those that are fighting for that better tomorrow. So let me turn you over to our closer and my boss, Lieutenant Governor Jacqueline Coleman.
Thanks, guys. Thank you. Well, thank you so much, and thank you so much for hosting us here today. And I just want to take this opportunity to say that I wake up every day so grateful to be able to do this work. To the young people in the room, you government students, there has not been an educator in this position in my lifetime. The last one was Martha Lane Collins. And so that is a tribute to Governor Beshear's commitment to education from the very beginning. And she did. His dad was her lieutenant governor, if you didn't know that. But it's why we've always been an education first administration from the very beginning. And as the highest elected mother and teacher in Kentucky, our education first plan is personal to me. I have walked in the shoes of these teachers that you have heard from today, and I know that they wake up with one goal, and that is to help our kids in the classrooms become better today than they were yesterday. Not just better writers or better historians, but better humans. Yes, our teachers are selfless. And yes, this work is a calling. I know that because they're my colleagues, they're my friends, and I even happen to be married to one. But they should not be victims of circumstance, nor should their courage to answer a calling be touted as the reason for paying them less than they deserve. The future of Kentucky's economy is in our classrooms today, and that makes these folks our original job creators. While they are molding young minds, our nurses, our small business owners, our electricians, they are also shouldering the weight of our future workforce every single day. Not only are they bearing that burden with inadequate pay, they're also doing it with $0 in textbook, technology, and instructional resource funding, often paying out of their own pockets for the things that their students need. No relief for their own student loan bills that roll in every month. And that makes it almost impossible for them to save for their own children's education. Little to no guidance on how to support the social, emotional, and mental needs of their students when the key to learning is building relationships. With about 2/3 of Kentucky's kids walking through the door on the first day of kindergarten ill-prepared. You heard me, 2/3 walk through the door on their first day of kindergarten ill-prepared. It is a miracle that we have a post-secondary readiness rate of around 73%. That is nothing short of a miracle. But imagine what it could be if every kid in the Commonwealth had access to preschool and families didn't have to worry that their kid would be the one that started behind the 8 ball and stayed behind through their high school graduation. As the mom of an almost 3-year-old, Governor says he has a teenager, I have a 3-nager, right? I want universal pre-K for every kid in Kentucky because it's what I want for my daughter. And when we talk about being at a competitive disadvantage, I've got a great story that my grandfather used to tell me. He, by the way, was a U of L's first 1,000-point scorer here in Louisville. But he had a saying, and it's exceptionally appropriate here today in the Derby City. We would watch basketball together as I was growing up, and as I watched him dissect the talent out there on the court, he'd look at me and he'd go, "You know, sis, you can't win the Kentucky Derby with a pack mule." And that is essentially what our schools have been asked to do. And it's exactly what brings us here today. So if I had to sum up our education first plan, which happens to be my job today, I'd say it's threefold. You put students first, you support the people who show up for our kids every day, and you give our schools the resources they need to do what they've been asked to do. Because they can't win the Kentucky Derby with a pack mule, and we shouldn't expect them to. This plan is not about throwing money at a problem. It's not about right or left or red or blue. It is about, as Governor Beshear likes to say, leading with our values. Investing in our littlest learners and the people who pour into them every single day so that we can sustain the unprecedented economic growth that we are preparing for tomorrow. But most importantly, it's so that every child, regardless of their zip code, can have access to a world-class education. And that requires teachers who are valued, schools that are resourced, and people in positions of power who are willing to do the right thing. Thank you so much, and I'm going to turn it back over to the governor.
We're happy to take a couple questions from the media, and then I got to do the most important thing, which is go meet with these government students if they'd like to.
Dr. Beshear,
Yeah.
it's not a budget year. When can we see this plan actually be put into motion, get the funding there for it?
Well, the General Assembly can pass this plan this year, even though it is not a budget year. Remember, they only passed a one-year budget a couple years ago and then used the short session as a budgetary year as well. And they are going to open the budget. They are going to rightfully provide some extra funding for a veterans home in Bowling Green. That's opening the budget. If they pass the income tax reduction, that is going to impact revenue, which is written into the budget. That is opening the budget. We're sitting right now with a projection of $2 billion of additional revenue over what we've already agreed to expend. We can do every single bit of what's in this plan and still have one of the largest budget surpluses in state history, and we can't afford to wait another year. I mean, last year, if we dropped from 42nd to 44th in teacher pay, my goodness, what can happen? And what about 4-year-olds or rising 4-year-olds right now? Does it mean that they get left out? Listen, every single year, this is going to be one of our top priorities because every single year it's that critical and important. The legislature needs to do it now. They can do it now. They're treating it like it's a red or blue issue. It's not. Now, with the exception of some of our seniors, none of our students are Democrats or Republicans. They're just our responsibility. Yes?
Sir, do you think shows like Abbott Elementary could help influence recruit a new generation of teachers or teachers to come back?
You know, I think the best recruiters of new teachers are teachers, are people who can show you what an amazing job it is with purpose. But we can't recruit, we can't win the competition for talent if we don't have the compensation and the staffing, right? The compensation is part of it. That's what's got to make up for the staffing. But one individual trying to do 3 people's job, just like with social workers right now, that's hard. And sometimes you may feel like you're failing everybody because you've got 3 times more people to help than you could possibly do. Now, I think if we do this, we pass this, and we're going to be a state that educators and rising educators look at and say, they value me. They hear me. They're going to continue to invest in me. Now, the very best way we can recruit and educate our teachers is to make a bold statement about education being the most important function of government and investing in it as such.
What else are you hoping to do to try to put this plan in action? Have you spoken with Republicans since your State of the Commonwealth address to kind of go over what that might look like?
So we went over, especially last year, leading into the budget, this entire plan. We've rolled it out again, but there's no magic wand, and there's no trick, in dealing with a General Assembly. But here, you know what we're doing? We're asking them to do the right thing. That's it. Just do the right thing. Live out our faith and values. Treat our neighbors as ourselves. What about our neighbors that can't afford to send their kids to preschool? What about our neighbors that are educators, that are falling behind in teacher pay, having to work those extra jobs? We've had legislatures that are Democrat or Republican dominated that have invested in education, and Indiana is about to do it. So all we're asking is for people to do the right thing, and they can say it's because of me, they can say it's in spite of me, they can say I had nothing to do with it. Listen, if the right thing happens for our educators, I'm happy because my job as governor is to get results.
Lieutenant Governor Coleman, too, you've done a lot of work on mental health for students. Could you talk about, after those conversations last year, like if there's a plan to share more updates on that as far as mental health?
Yes, so in collaboration with lots of folks across our administration, we launched the Student Mental Health Initiative, and we, in doing that, elevated student voice. Our students led the way. They planned the events. They dove into the data. They made the recommendations. We've seen one bill pass, and the governor signed it into law, that allows school boards to create a policy for mental health absences. And we continue to work every day with our partners across agencies, across communities, and actually in the federal government as well. We have had lots of meetings there where they actually have asked us to be a model for the student mental health work that they're doing in other states. And so we continue to push through and work on these, getting these results. Those students are still involved. And as I like to tell them, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So it doesn't have to necessarily be a bill that goes through the legislative process. It might be a policy. It might be a change of language to an existing policy, a grant that exists. And so we're also helping our regional co-ops to obtain federal grants to help fund positions and resources and support for our educators as well.
And the last thing I'd mention is this is where we have to go because it's also the law. Federal health care reform came through, and that created a mandate that we treat mental health just like we do physical health and should be providing all of those services. That actually got passed into state law somewhat recently, even though it was a part of federal health care reform. But what it calls upon us to do over time, and that's everybody in the Commonwealth, is to provide more services. While it is the law, you look at the amount of services used for physical health and mental health, and we know a lot more is needed. And hey, our youth are dealing with a lot more. And one of the great parts about the Lieutenant Governor's initiatives with mental health is it starts with students listening to students. Because if our students are dealing with a lot more than I did or than we did, we need to understand. And the way we do that is by listening.
Beshear and Deputy Mayor, can you talk about what the conversations have looked like in bringing universal pre-K to the state, to Louisville? Is it you guys sharing funding, recruiting, things like that?
So on the state level, we're asking for $171 million, I believe it is. And when you look at $2 billion extra dollars, not even getting to the rainy day fund, you can do that percentage. It's a really small part. That would provide the additional funding for school districts, and that's why we continue to support full-day kindergarten as well. Now, we want to give flexibility to school districts on how to get it done, because once we have the funding, we want to do it as quickly as we can. But we've got great educators, we've got great superintendents, we've got great leadership. They know what'll work in a community, and we trust them and we'll work with them to get that done. Good? All right. All right. Thank you all very much.